In a sun-dappled corner of a sprawling, ancient forest lived a tiny sparrow named Pip. She was smaller than most, with feathers the color of soft moss and eyes like shiny black beads. But what was most noticeable about Pip wasn't her size, it was her voice. When she tried to sing, all that came out was a faint, wavering chirp, like a blade of grass whistling in a gentle breeze. The other birds in the forest had voices that were loud and clear. The robins sang bold, cheerful melodies that announced the dawn. The blackbirds performed complex fluting concertos from the highest branches. Even the boisterous jays had a confident, if slightly squawky call that commanded attention. Their songs filled the forest, weaving a rich tapestry of sound from sunrise to sunset. They were the orchestra of the woods, and each one played their part with pride. Pip, however, felt like a musician without an instrument. She would sit on a low branch, listening to the magnificent chorus around her, her little heart filled with a deep yearning. She longed to join them, to add her own voice to the symphony, to share the joy and beauty she felt inside. But whenever she opened her beak, her little chirp would be instantly swallowed by the powerful songs of the others. Often the other birds would notice her feeble attempts. "Listen to little Pip," a flashy blue jay would call, ruffling his feathers. "Is that a song, or are you just squeaking?" A group of sparrows, her own kind, would titter amongst themselves. "Poor thing," one would whisper, not quietly enough. "She tries so hard, but it's just no use." Some birds are born to sing, and some are not. Their words stung more than a cold winter wind. Each laugh, each dismissive glance, felt like a tiny pebble weighing down her spirit. There were days when Pip felt so discouraged that she would hide herself away in the thickest part of a holly bush, vowing to never sing again. What was the point? They were right. Her voice was weak, pathetic. It was easier to stay silent, to be invisible, than to face the constant reminder of what she couldn't do. But deep within Pip's tiny chest, a small, stubborn flame refused to be extinguished. It was the love of music itself. She didn't just want to sing to be heard by others. She wanted to sing for the sheer love of it. She loved the way a melody could rise and fall like a rolling hill, the way a high note could feel like soaring into the clouds. And so, after a day of hiding, she would always emerge, her resolve renewed. "I may not have a strong voice now," she would whisper to herself, "but I have a strong heart, and I will not give up." She made a promise to herself, a sacred pact with the dawn. She decided that their laughter would not be her silence. Instead, it would be her motivation. And so, Pip's journey began. Every single morning, while the forest was still cloaked in the soft gray light of pre-dawn and the other birds were still tucked away in their nests, Pip would find a secluded spot. It was a quiet little clearing by a babbling brook, where the only audience was the silent, wise old stones and the gently nodding ferns. This was her stage, her sanctuary. Here she practiced. She started small. She didn't try to belt out a grand opera. Instead, she focused on a single note. She would hold it for as long as her little lungs could manage, trying to make it steady to chase away the wobble. At first, it was just a faint, shaky sound, but she did it again and again and again. She listened to the sound of the water flowing over the pebbles, trying to mimic its smooth, consistent flow. As the days turned into weeks, she started adding more notes. She would listen intently to the whistle of the wind through the pine needles and try to replicate its gentle, soaring pitch. She would hear a dewdrop fall from a leaf onto the ground with a soft plink, and she would try to create a note that was just as clear and pure. The world became her music teacher. The rustle of leaves was a rhythm. The buzz of a bumblebee was a low, steady hum. It was painstaking work. There were many mornings when her throat felt sore and her spirit felt weary. The other birds' songs would start to drift through the trees as the sun rose, and she would hear their effortless power, and doubt would creep back in. What am I doing? She would think. Their voices are like rivers, and mine is just a tiny trickle. But then she would remember her promise. She would take a deep breath, close her eyes, and focus on the single pure note she had perfected. It was hers. She had earned it. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, a change began to occur. Her wavering chirp started to find its center. The notes became clearer, stronger. She discovered she could string them together, creating simple, delicate melodies. They weren't loud, but they were true. They were filled with the sound of her own heart, with the patience of the stones and the gentleness of the ferns. She was no longer just mimicking the sounds of the forest. She was weaving them into a song that was uniquely hers. She sang of the silver moon she watched before dawn, of the first golden ray of sunlight, of the quiet determination that burned within her. One particular morning, the air was crisp and clear after a night of gentle rain. The entire forest seemed to be holding its breath, washed clean and waiting for the day to begin. Pip flew to her usual branch, feeling a new kind of confidence fluttering in her chest. She took a deep breath, not of desperation, but of quiet joy. And then she began to sing. It wasn't a loud song. It didn't try to compete with the robins or the blackbirds. Instead, it was a melody of breathtaking sweetness and clarity. It flowed like the brook beside her, pure and continuous. It soared with the lightness of a dandelion seed drifting on the breeze. Each note was perfectly formed, polished by thousands of mornings of practice. Her song told a story of a small bird with a big dream, of struggle and of quiet triumph. It was filled with a depth of emotion that the other birds, with their powerful but often practiced without thought songs, had never expressed. One by one, the other birds fell silent. A robin halfway through his boisterous morning call stopped and tilted his head. A blackbird, perched high on a branch, paused his elaborate tune to listen. The jays, the finches, the wrens, the entire forest orchestra quieted down. The only sound was Pip's song, winding its way through the silent trees. They had never heard anything like it. It wasn't about being the loudest or the most complex. It was about honesty. It was about beauty. It was a voice that came not just from the throat, but from the very soul. When she finally finished, a profound silence hung in the air for a moment. Then the forest erupted. But it wasn't with laughter. It was with a chorus of appreciative chirps, whistles, and calls. The flashy blue jay flew down to a branch near Pip. I've never heard a song so beautiful, he said, his usual arrogance gone, replaced by a genuine awe. How did you learn to sing like that? Pip, her little heart soaring, looked at him and then at all the other birds now gathered around. I just practiced, she said simply, every day. From that day forward, Pip's song was the most cherished in the forest. The other birds didn't laugh at her anymore. They listened. They learned from her that the strength of a voice isn't measured in its volume, but in the heart that it carries. And Pip, the little sparrow who once had the weakest voice, taught everyone that with patience, dedication, and a belief in yourself, even the faintest whisper can grow into the most beautiful song of all. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, your own unique voice is waiting to be heard. If you enjoyed our story, please hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next video. We'll see you soon.